everyone, and welcome to the podcast. Today we're sitting down with a few of the boys from 4RAR who served in the Australian Defence Force. They're Vietnam veterans and they put their life on the line for our country. They've been through a fair bit and they've seen the worst, but they've come out the other end. It's all about hearing real stories of what happened to the Australian soldiers over in Vietnam. Why the Australian government made that decision to be involved in the Vietnam War. There's no fluff. It's all about real stories and how it was. But that's what life's all about. We really need to hear these stories from people that were there, experienced war, because if we don't learn from our past, we will never make sure that we don't make those same choices in the future. So let's jump into it. I'd like to introduce Ivan Tilmouth and Colin Fiedler, both from 4RAR. I know this might sound a bit wanky, but thank you for your service, guys, because, you know, you're not told enough how much you've done for our country.
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
Look, let's get straight into it. So right from the beginning, and we're going to mainly be speaking with Tilly here. Before we start, how'd you get that name, Tilly?
Well, it's a funny thing. I wasn't called that not till I think it was when 4RAR come over, they started calling me Tilly. Yeah, yeah.
So it's a nickname from your army days.
Yeah,
and just stuck.
In Vietnam. Yeah. That's stuck. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, let's get straight into it. Right from the beginning, when you first signed up for the army, what was going through your mind? And did you sign up or were you called up?
I was called up. Yeah.
So you were sitting there waiting for that number to be called, hoping it wasn't you?
No, I wasn't. I was actually I was working on the army base at Townsville.
Yeah.
And I'd done the medical in Sydney before I went. And what happened? My mother sent me a letter saying you've been called up. You're in. And I was earning good money on working on the army base, so I wasn't that keen to
quit.
No, no. But anyway, I thought I better go back, please me mother.
Yeah.
And anyway, I went back. Then I got called up, and I went through recruit training at Wagga, and from there, when we finished that, we get two choices what corps we want to go into.
Yeah.
And I forget what I put transport first, and I put infantry second, which was a silly thing to do, but because naturally I get infantry.
Yeah. Well, they needed more infantry than anything, didn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But after that, I went to Signal and done infantry training. That was another 3 months.
Yeah.
Yeah, and which was harder, but it seemed a bit easier because I got fitter.
Mm.
Yeah, and and we mainly worked through the week and had the weekends off, and we used to play rugby union on a Saturday, and if you showed any form in that, the same coach used to coach a side in town with rugby league. And,
oh, right. So you could get into that.
Yeah, you get into that, and they barbecues, and
wow.
Yeah, and you get paid for it as well.
Well, that's not bad. And Colin, you actually joined the army, so you were already in the army when you were called to go to Vietnam.
Yeah. I spent a couple of years in Malaysia with 4th Battalion when they formed in Woodside, and done 2 years over there, and 6 months in Borneo, and then when I come back, about another 9 months, and our battalion was next to go in line to go to Vietnam. So
was it an adventure for you, or was it more?
Well, I'd done 6 years, and then I thought, I'm going to get out of the army, and all that. And then when it got closer to go, when Vietnam was coming up, and I thought, who do I know? For the last 6 years, it was all the people I did know were in the army. So I decided, I'll sign on for another 3, and that's what I've done, and that's where I finished up.
And Tilly, yourself, what was going through your mind when you got that letter? You're reading the letter, they're saying that you're going to Vietnam. What was going through your mind?
Well, I didn't actually know if I was going through the letter when I got called up. But I was going in the army, and a lot of the national servicemen never went to Vietnam, and I didn't know if I was going to go or not. But when I done finished my infantry training, they give you a choice then, another choice, and by that time I was all G'd up. It's like I wanted to go. I wanted to go to Vietnam, yeah, because all the training I'd done, and I sort of so I put in for the which was reinforcement unit at Ingleburn.
Yeah,
and that was the quickest way to get to Vietnam, and I thought I'll go in that, and so I did, and I got that because so they wanted people over in Vietnam.
Yeah,
especially infantry. But anyway, that was the story on that, and I was there for about a couple of months, and then I said, "You're the next to go, and you get a week's leave."
Yeah,
and that was a funny experience because I was going back to my parents' place, and John Keating, the Prime Minister, then he was only a couple of years older than me then, but he was from Bankstown. He was on the Bankstown Council, and I knew him. And when he got to where I am, because I said to him, I said, "Are you going back to Bankstown? I'll get a lift to Bass Hill with you." Anyway, he did, and he said, "How far down there do you live?" I said, "Oh, it's only a couple of k's." Oh, I said, "No, I'll drive you down there." And he drove me down there, and we're still talking.
Yeah.
And he was trying to talk me out of going in the bush and all that on the trip home.
Yeah.
And I said, "Come and meet my parents. They're fully into Labor. They're Labor voters."
Yes.
And he'd come in, and my mother and father were there when we were having a beer and that, and they were all, the three of them were trying to talk me out of going. They said, "You just go back to Townsville," my mother was saying. I said, "You're the one that talked me into coming down here." And I said, "No, I want to go now. I'll see a bit of the world for nothing." And so done the week's leave, and next thing go back to Ingleburn. Then we flew out.
So let's explore that. You flew out. So were you on a commercial plane? Was it an army aircraft or Air Force aircraft?
It was a Qantas plane.
Yeah.
Just forget what it was. It was a Qantas plane, and we flew from. We were reinforced. It was about. I think on the plane there would have been 30 infantry blokes, and then there were other corps, and we went to Perth, picked up a squadron of SAS.
Oh,
and
wow.
By that time it was dark, and they were all drunk, and because people they're waiting for us. Yeah,
it's a bit different now. But were you allowed to drink on the plane? Were you?
You were. Yeah. They were giving us free grog on the plane till we got to Singapore. Then we slept at Singapore airport, the old Changi airport, and we slept on the regiment there. And
wow.
Yeah. And anyway, the next morning, because we had to leave in civilian clothes because of the protesters.
Oh yes.
Yeah, and we changed into greens and that. And
so was that your first overseas trip as well?
Except for New Zealand, but I travelled around Australia and New Zealand. Yeah, but that was my first overseas trip. Yeah,
yeah. So to Asia basically.
Yeah.
So what were you when you hit that ground in Singapore? What was your thoughts then? Were you thinking, "Wow, this is hot," or "It's so different to Australia"?
No, I had quite a few beers by that time. That didn't worry me where I was going.
So was it the next morning you flew out to Vietnam, or did you stay in Singapore for a while?
No. The next morning we flew out from Singapore. Flew out to Vietnam from. Yeah. Actually, they changed the air crew too. They Asians was the pilots and and then staff. And from there it was only a couple of hours flight. We were flew into Ton Sanut, but you couldn't land there.
Oh, right.
And I had a window seat, and I looked out, and there's fires everywhere, smoke coming up, and
wow.
And I thought to myself, this is fair income.
Yeah, that's when you realise it was real.
Yeah.
I remember I didn't serve in the forces, but I went over to Iraq and was there as a civilian for cooking for the Australian and US troops. And I remember when we flew in, we had to fly corkscrew because they couldn't then lock on with their mortars or anything. So I just remember thinking, what have I got myself into?
Yeah.
And seeing smoke and everything rising, you must have thought, well, there's no turning back now.
No, that's how I thought.
Did you the same, Colin? Did you?
I flew out from Adelaide, from Edinburgh.
Yep.
And that's a funny thing too, because when I flew for Qantas, we flew direct, and when we're coming into Tonsanoo Air Base, and anyway, the pilots, the blokes wanted to have a look how they fly it and all this, so it was my turn sort of just to stand inside the door there and watch him, and I didn't see the guy. He must have winked at his what's name. He says, "My God, what's that plane there?" He says, and I thought, "Oh my God, I'm not even going to hit the ground,
Well, you're going to hit the ground, but I'm waiting for it.
And I thought, "You bastards, So I come in the same way by Qantas.
And so you've hit the ground. You're in Vietnam. Do you remember it was morning or night?
It was afternoon.
Afternoon.
Yeah.
So what was going through you? You're on the ground. Your boots have hit the ground. What's going through your mind then?
We had a SAS sergeant in charge of us, and he said, "You infantry blokes and SAS form a cordon. That's like a round circle on the airport, Put all our gear in the middle." And I thought, this is nice. Straight into it.
No break, no day off.
No. And they give us rifles, and apparently we were one of the first to get rifles as soon as we got off the plane. With a full mag, and then the other corps, Chinook, come in and took the other corps down to Vung Tau, which was a lot safer at that time. And then
that was by helicopter.
Yeah, that was by chopper.
Helicopter.
Yeah.
So when you got in there, you were taken to a base or a compound, or what were you? Where were you going?
No. From Tonsanoo, we were there. We were there till say about 3 or 4 in the afternoon.
Yeah.
We were only there for a couple of hours, and anyway, they said, "Oh, you infantry blokes, get on that Chinook." It was a big helicopter, and we'll use it going to Nui Dat.
Yeah.
And I said, "Oh, beauty, get out of here." Anyway, but the SAS blokes, they spent the night there.
Yeah.
And they said they didn't, because I seen a few of them later, and they said, no, we didn't get any action. And we flew out the next morning to Nui Dat. And from there, I went to reinforcement in Nui Dat.
Yes.
Where they train you, infantry tactics. And
so you were still training in Vietnam?
Yeah. You're learning, and the rifle I carried most of the time was an Armalite, and I never seen an Armalite before. And plus, I never seen a Claymore mine, and we had to carry them all the time.
Oh, wow.
Because we had to set them up every night when we go into a perimeter.
Yes.
And
Sorry, you might have to explain to him what a Claymore mine is and Armalite. Armalite was an American
gun?
Yeah. Made of plastic virtually.
Oh, really?
Except for the barrel and sentry,
Yeah.
And the
clay mine, that was, you'd set it up. Well, you can explain a bit of it.
Yeah, Claymore. You, when we do a perimeter, you do a clearing patrol first, all in your area. Like we were 8 platoon, and we just clear in 8 platoon. Then, so that after that, we put mines out there. It's a Claymore. It's shaped like that.
Yeah.
And that's where the most of the shrapnel is.
Yes.
Or they're just like little ball bearings. And there's a bit of a backblast, but you're not supposed to get it unless the Viet Cong turns them around. You get the lot.
Yeah. So in in the morning, if you're moving on, do you take those with you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we've got to set them up every night.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah. But we, there's one, platoon, there's 3 machine guns, and you set it up just outside. Every platoon puts one out.
Yeah.
Free out.
Yeah.
And then you move on for where you're going to
go next.
Yeah.
So when you were in camp, so to say, do you just get an order to say, right, we're moving out now? Do you get notice where you're going? Do you know where you're going?
No, you don't know where you're going, but you do get notice. You get about a day's notice, and of course you've got to pack your gear and your ammunition, your food and ammunition. That's the main thing,
Yeah.
And what weapons you're taking, and
So when you're out there, how long are you out on patrol for?
Well, the longest I've been out was 6 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how do supplies get in? Do they just drop them, or?
Yeah, they drop them. Yeah, out of the choppers and that. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
But that was with Tura. Because
So you started with Tura.
Yeah. No, when I finished when I'd done all the training at reinforcement unit.
Yep.
They needed blokes to go to Tura, and I was one of them. There's 10 of us went there, and I was one of them, and we went there, and it was that was a bit horrific too. They lost 3 blokes killed. There's a few mines.
Yeah.
And they every second bloke had a bandage around him. So I thought,
what are you thinking? What am I in for?
What have I done here? I should be back in town for working on the army back.
And Colin, you were over there. You weren't in infantry. You were in the catering corps.
Catering corps, yeah. I used to, when the guys would go out and all that, and as he said, they could go out for up to 6 weeks, and when they come back, when they're in camp, they eat, the fresh food and all that. And when they're out on operations, they've got what they call ration packs.
Yeah.
With a bit of everything in it, and then when they come back that day, they put on a bit of a smorgasbord and all that. And, while they're in camp, they have 3 meals a day, and we made all our own bread rolls and everything like that.
You couldn't just simply
cook mince in 100 different ways.
Yeah. You couldn't just call up the bakery and say, drop off some bread.
No.
Where were you getting your supplies from? How were they coming in?
They used to come in by helicopter and plane as well. They had an air base there.
Yeah.
And they used to, bring in supplies and all this. And
were they coming in from Australia or from around the region?
Some of the stuff from Australia. No, they got most of their stuff from Singapore. Singapore and a lot of the planes come from Butterworth.
Yeah.
Australian Air Force.
Yes.
And they used to drop off the stuff and all this. And, it was... the food wasn't the best over there because of what they give you, you know what I mean? Like the eggs taste like they had ether in them and all this to preserve because, you had refrigeration, but not a lot over there. So, yeah.
Well, yeah, it's a bit different. When I was over in Iraq, we were getting a lot of our stuff from Kuwait and Dubai, and we were flying stuff from places like Argentina and Brazil and places like that. And it all had to be, of course, approved. So it was a completely different set up to what you guys. I did go into an actual army kitchen, which was on wheels, a trailer. So hot in there, I remember. But, it was just so different to cook with food that was not readily available. I suppose you had to make that decision of what we've got because the supplies run out at times.
Well, that's right, yeah. So...
And Tilly, your day, so you're out on patrol or something, you got to sleep, so you wake up. What happens then? Do you just simply walk around? Is there a place you're heading to?
No, you stand to. You get up at first light, then you stand to, and you do another clearing patrol, and you bring your claymores in, and that's it. Then you're on your way.
Yeah,
that's it. You might stay there a couple of days. It just depends on what's going on.
Yeah.
But it's usually only one night, then you
move on.
Move on, yeah.
Did you go days without seeing the Viet Cong?
Oh, yeah. You could go weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And look, we see on some of the movies such as like Forrest Gump or Born on the 4th of July and stuff like that, where they went into these holes that the Viet Cong had. Did we have troops that were going in there and clearing those holes?
Engineers.
Engineers, yeah, they called them
Tunnel rats.
Yeah, tunnel rats. Yeah.
Well, you never went in one yourself?
Oh, I did. I went in one, and I this is later in when just before I got wounded. I went in there, and I was scouting. I was forward scouting, and then I said to my second scout, I said, I'm going to check this out. I've got a feeling there's something down there.
Yeah.
So I did, and I got down there, and there was a North Vietnamese major's shirt and a radio. And I had I said to the second scout, you take the radio and I'll take the shirt. So I just stuffed the shirt and said, put it in your pack before the section commander comes up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I didn't want to let anyone know we had them.
Yeah.
Especially the North Vietnamese shirt. I wanted to take it home with me.
Oh, as a souvenir.
Yeah.
And did you ever go out on patrol, Colin?
We went out what you call tail patrols.
Yeah.
But I did go out once. We were going out on a tail patrol, and 3 of our blokes got drafted by the Americans, like talking about bunkers and all that. They were supposed to fire straight into the bunkers, but they misfired, and we lost three guys, you know. And so we was ready to go out and tail patrol. So they said, right, we're going out of reinforcement, you know. So we went out there and spent 10 days altogether. I was out there, and it was, you know, it's not the best out there, you know. And I was sort of not one of the experts, you know, and I had a bloke called Lippy.
Yeah.
And he was taking the piss out of me, you know, and saying, he said, right, you stay there when they're setting out pickets and all that, you know. And he said to me, he says, but now and then, he says, look around, because they could come from the other way as well. I didn't get any sleep that night whatsoever.
And also I've also heard stories over there that there were people that sort of got shell-shocked. They sort of were in a daze. They didn't realise, they knew where they were, but they just couldn't handle it. Like, did you have people like that had to be sent home?
There was one guy that I know of when we was on the horseshoe, and he actually, we were getting up early in the morning and all that. I was getting up early with the cook there, and anyway, I'd seen this thing in the grass, and it was a bloke crying, you know, and he just come over as a reinforcement, and he just couldn't handle it. And anyway, they sent him back to Australia. They had sometimes they call it mother's fatigue, you know. He's never left his mother, and all of a sudden he's over there, you know. And I couldn't say it's 100% true, but I heard about 3 months after he come back, he was in his car with his girlfriend. He just let the steering wheel go and just killed himself, you know. He couldn't he couldn't handle it over there, and he couldn't, when he come back, he felt that guilty, they reckon, you know what I mean?
We're going to definitely explore that later in the podcast, in the sense of when you guys come home, what actually happened and how you were treated. But I really think that I believe, that you weren't forced to go to Vietnam. Is that correct? That you were asked if you wanted to go.
I know when I was in 4A, they sort of said, if you don't really want to go over there, because the simple reason is you don't want someone next to you that doesn't want to be there, you know, and because it'd be bad for the infantryman, you know, because you're there to look after his back and vice versa, you know. But I do remember, like the medic, it was just the medic. It wasn't sort of like you go in and get your last check out and all that, and he's just sitting there and he says, you want to go over, son, you know? I said, oh, yeah. He said, righto, next, you know. He wasn't an official person or anything, but because what's the use of sending someone over there if they really don't want to go? And Anyway, as Tilly would tell you, when you're doing the training, they can pick the people,
Yeah.
that don't want to put in there.
Yeah.
You don't want to do the
They
effort.
don't want to do the right thing and all that. So
Yeah.
it's best to let them go somewhere else,
Well, I suppose back in Australia, we needed people
Yeah, well,
to...
all national servicemen didn't go to Vietnam, There were some that did stay back and do other jobs,
Yeah. Well, let's move forward to, and I hope it's okay to talk about this, is that you were on patrol one day and you got injured. Can you tell us about that? What actually happened that day? And what happened to you?
I'd been in country for a fair while, and it was 10 months, and that's with me time with 2RA and 4RA, and I was a bit overconfident, I suppose. Me and this other bloke called Dutchy, we were out front, we were scouting most of the day, and it was pretty horrific actually, but because you don't know what's going to happen, and there's North Vietnamese and Viet Cong all around you because they're coming back on leave, and we had their bunker system. Anyway, we done patrolling, and we were back at the perimeter, and we're just having a brew, a cup of coffee, and the corporal comes around and he said, "Dutchy, I want you and Tilly to go out on a water party. Let's go down the valley and get some more water."
Yep.
And Dutchy says, "No, we're not. Me and Tilly aren't going to. We've been out front all day." And the corporal said, "Oh, yeah, right." Anyway, we're sitting there having a brew, and it was. I didn't know what it was actually. You didn't. I thought it was either Viet Cong throwing grenades in, or it was artillery support, but it was the American strafing it, and it kept coming in closer. And Dutchy says, "Tilly, we should go up behind that big tree." And I said, "No, I'm going to finish my brew," and I did, and I got hit in the leg first.
Yeah.
Said, "Sure, what's going on here?" And then I grabbed my Armalite and I put me. Well, I thought I didn't realise the worst part was my chest. Yeah, but I got hit in the face too, and I must have had my arm up like that, and that's when I didn't realise I'd been hit in the face. Hit in the chest, I mean. Yeah, but I thought it was just the leg and
the face.
Yeah, because Tom Kurtz, our platoon commander, he come back and he said, "Are you all right, Tilly?" I said, "Well, I think so. I think I've just broken my jaw and got a bit of shrapnel in my leg." And he walked past, and then this other bloke, I don't remember much about this, but what I've been told, this corporal, he hit me with morphine and seen I was hitting the chest and that, and they organised for me to go first up because I was the worst, apparently, yeah. And and the next thing they were pumping the morphine, and I didn't really care. And about what was going on, actually, they whisked me up out of the chopper and said, "Hey, this." So
you went by chopper, you got Betty backed out that way?
Yeah, by chopper, yeah. It was two big Yanks.
Yeah.
And they were, one was a Negro, one was a white bloke, and they said, like, "Oh, Ozzy, you're bleeding all over old chopper."
I think that was the last thing you were worried about.
I said, "Well, I'm sorry. I could just..."
Sorry for getting wounded.
Yeah. Anyway, they took us into a place, took me and all the rest of them went back to the Australian hospital at Vung Tau.
Yeah.
Took me to the American base at Black Horse. And I get in there and I'm still, and I play on it a bit, but I was pretty bad then. I said, "I might need another hit of morphine," yeah.
So did you black out any time during that
Well, apparently,
Do you
I
remember?
did. I don't remember it
Yeah.
because, like I said, and then another time well, when I finally went into the operating theatre, there was two American nurses, and they weren't bad sorts either. Anyway, I I was trying to grab them, and
Yeah. Was that the morphine or was that you?
but the morphine, a bit of both.
Yeah.
But a few days later, one of the nurses, when I started to come good, or not good, but she said, "Are you still feeling horny?" And I said,
Yeah, that was an opportunity.
Yeah, wasn't it?
I thought, yeah, what am I? I'm in here. Anyway, and they said, I said, why? He said, she told me the story. He said, you're trying to touch up me, mate.
Oh, God, could you imagine if you did that today?
Yeah, and I said, well, I'm sorry about that, but I haven't seen a round-eyed Sheila for 10 months.
Yeah.
And that's, well, I was lucky too. There was a chest specialist visiting the hospital, and he operated on me. If they reckon if he hadn't been there, I would have died, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so I was pretty lucky that way.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I've heard a lot of times that the army doctors could do more than in normal hospitals because one, they seen things that they would never have seen in a general hospital.
No.
So what would happen is they may have seen that womb, already know how to fix it really quickly because they've done it before. Where in Australia or in America, they may have never seen a chest wound like that because it doesn't happen every day. Especially in Australia, we don't have explosions and people being shot in that sense every day. So, yeah, maybe that was a reason as well. It was good that he was there to be there. But when you got there, I've heard about this thing, because you went to an American hospital, about having purple hearts on the pillows, basically waiting him. Did you get a purple heart?
No, I was the only one in our ward that never got a purple heart.
I know it's not an Australian thing, but I thought they might have said, look, they're there, take one.
Yeah, but I talked to a doctor. I went and seen a bloke in hospital there, and there was a doctor out the side having a smoke, and I used to smoke. Then I was out there and started talking to him, and I said to him, I says, well, they were all civilian doctors, mainly CMF and all this, and them they used to call them days. But he said that why it's good over here is, he said, if someone comes in wounded, he said in a civilian, they got to get their parents or get someone to sign and all that. And he said, and if a person's life's on the line, at least they can say, well, we'll go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
Even if it's something new, they'll try anything to save that soldier,
Yeah, well, that's what happened here. You got saved.
And And he said to me, working here for 12 months is like 10 years experience in Australia.
I suppose it's like we always hear that the Air Force pilots are so sought after with airlines and doctors, if they're army doctors or in cooks as well. They want them because, one, you've got the discipline. You guys are taught discipline in the army. And secondly, that you just get in and do the job.
Yeah. Instead of saying it's not my job. You know?
Everyone had to do something.
Yeah.
There was
Everyone's done different things. No matter what you was employed for in the army.
Yeah.
There was that many different things you should, that they want you to do, and you just got to do it. Try it.
And Tilly, when you were there, what was it like MASH? I mean, was it a field hospital? Was it an actual building you were in?
Well, I was in an actual building because it was established. Yeah, it was Black Horse. It was big. But the one at Newey that was not Newey Vung. That was the same. Yeah, there was wards and
What about the food? What was the food like? Do you remember? It wasn't ration packs, was it?
No. You get a proper food in the hospital. And no, the Americans, they did look after me. I must admit, But another thing, I've been there I've been there about 3 or 4 days by this time, and anyway, the nurses and all the staff and that, they come around, they got this cake. And I said, they're singing happy birthday. I said, whose birthday is it? He said, it's yours. Said, you're 22 today. Oh, yeah. And I didn't realise, I didn't have didn't realise I was that close to my birthday.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
And when you were there also, did you have visits from the Australian Defence Force as well, or anyone come through from the government?
The only one I remember visiting me was the battalion doctor.
Yeah.
But the CEO of the battalion, he reckoned he come there too.
Mm.
But I can't remember seeing him. But I remember the doctor. Doctor was our battalion doctor.
Yeah.
Well, he was quite good actually. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
And so how long were you in the hospital for there at Butterworth?
I was over a week in the American hospital.
Yep.
That was up north, and then I went to Vung Tau. I was there for probably 3 or 4 days, and they said, "Oh, you're going home." So, but you're going to Butterworth. You're going to, because by that, I was still in a wheelchair at that time, but he said, "We get a bit of rehab in Butterworth, then you'll probably go home."
Yeah.
I said, yeah, righto, yeah, because I'd had enough by that time.
I bet. And going home, how did you get home? Was it once again plane, or was it?
Yeah, it was a. I'm not sure if they were Air Force or Army pilots, but it was what do you call them? A caribou.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and there was, and what I didn't know, there was a lot of blokes that were wounded.
Yeah.
And I said, what's up there? I said it to one of the nurses, and she said, oh, there's 8 blokes up there. They've been killed.
Oh.
I said, well, this is nice. Anyway, but after that, it was apparently we landed at Darwin.
Yeah.
But I must have been asleep or something, but I don't remember Darwin. Then we went straight to Richmond Air Base in Sydney, yeah.
So did you go to a hospital here in Australia, or were you just straight
No, I spent another 3 months in and out of hospital. But I was attached to the hospital, but I used to get leave all weekend and that. But I had, I had to do rehab at the hospital and that. So I was there, and when I was due to get out, I went to what was it? They call it South Head. It's up the heads at Sydney. Yeah. And I went there, and I was over a month there, and before my time was up to go out. And anyway, they asked me, "Do you want to stay in the army?" I said, "What?" Then I did. I didn't have it organised, but our Sergeant Major Burke, he said he knew all the blokes one of the sergeants in charge of infantry movement.
Yeah.
I said, well, how will, because a lot of the blokes have been, where Colin had been, he'd been to Malaysia, Borneo and that. But I heard, they weren't doing Borneo anymore, but just Malaya, and I heard the other blokes was beauty over there, so I was going to sign on for another 3 years to go over there. Yeah. But I didn't particularly want to go back to Vietnam, but
I think you did your part over there.
Anyway, the doctor said, you can stay in the army, all right, but you won't be going overseas again. Because of my wounds, And I said, oh well, no, I'll get out. So which I did. Yeah.
So what did you do once you left the army? What career did you end up in?
I just got to think back now. It's I was driving a truck on the Sydney County Council. That's electricity council, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and I was doing that. I'd done it for probably 18 months. That was in Sydney.
Yeah.
And I all the stuff that was going on about Vietnam, I was getting sick of it, And one of my mates said, I'm thinking about going to England. You want to come? He said, yeah, I'll go. I've still got a couple of grand from the army, yeah.
Yeah.
And which we did. That's what's saved me going crazy, I think.
Yeah.
We were going over there because over in the UK and all Europe, you don't hear much about Vietnam.
Yeah.
There's parts in the paper when you read about it, third page or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
But
they
it's-
didn't. Sorry,
Yeah, go on.
they didn't have protests over there because England wasn't in the Vietnam
Wasn't it?
War.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Neither was it was mainly America, Australia,
Australia.
Koreans,
Mm.
and a few other small New Zealand. And but I know when I come back, we come back by ship on the Sydney, and they said us, and then we had a march through Brisbane, and they says, whatever you do, go home and get your civilian clothes. Don't wear any army uniforms in Brisbane, And we said, what the shit the hell's going on here? You know what I mean? But you soon enough found out, because as soon as if you ever said you've been to Vietnam, you're baby killers, or you got all the bad vibes, you know what I mean? So a lot of the guys, they just shut up and didn't say nothing, and that's why I think a lot of the guys did have a lot of mental problems because they couldn't talk to people about it.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
as soon as they did, someone would accuse them of doing things, you know what I mean? Which was all bullshit, you know?
It was horrible because you were sent there by the government. It wasn't you who made that decision to go to Vietnam.
Yeah.
And the second thing is, I suppose it's a bit different today where we actually have a lot more independent journalists, not so much, but things are said. So we would know that you were never baby killers. You were never going into villages and burning them down or killing people unnecessarily.
No.
Some journalists, though, that they wanted to glorify,
make a name for themselves.
Show you the worst things or show you, that they had let's face it, they sent over there, that's just tell a story.
Yeah.
Most of them were pretty good, though, the media, but you get the odd one or two that, a bit of bullshit going on,
I mean, I'm so sorry you guys had to go through that because it took, 30-odd years before they gave your parade home.
Yeah.
20. 1987 they give us a welcome home parade,
And that was just so many years too late because you should have been given that when you first come back.
A lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the thing...
And then when, like people that did get wounded or did have mental problems, it took them a long time to get any pensions, you know what I mean? Because they made sure, that the questions they ask and all this, trying to trick, if you say one thing wrong, you're going for a pension.
And it took people from the TPI Association, such as Frankie Angles, who really should be given an Order of Australia for what he did for you guys, because there are a lot of people there that never thought they could get pensions or they didn't know how to fill it out. And he dedicated time.
Well, he used a lot of his own money, I remember once I rang him up and he says, I'm in Perth. I said, what are you doing there? Oh, it's a bloke over here. He said he can't do it on the phone, so I'm flying over to do his TPI pension, you know what I mean? But
the government should have...
But you shouldn't have had that.
No, the government should have had that in place. And as we know, and I know through when Dad went through and some of his mates, probably yourself, Tilly, that they would mishandle things. They would misplace documents. You'd have to go and see a psychiatrist again or another doctor just to prove that you've had, in your case, an injury, or in your case that you were actually in certain areas. You had one friend there where he was supposed, was he on the shoe? The
horseshoe, yeah.
And you had to prove these things.
Yeah.
I mean, you were over there. Isn't that proof enough?
Yeah. Well, that's what happened. Yeah.
So let's before we finish up, just explore the mateship that you guys have from 4 RAR. How did you both meet anyway? Was it in...
Well, I met Tilly through Steve Young.
Yeah.
They're great friends, they have been.
Yeah.
So did you serve with Steve over there?
Yeah. Well, actually, he came up with 4 and I'm when they come over, they had an advance party, but I'd been out on what they call a tail. Cole just mentioned it. Yeah, tail patrol. And I just come back, and I'm laying on my bed having a smoke, just relaxing after 5 days out in the scrub, and he comes in. He says, "Who are you?" I said, well, who are you? He said, well, we've got our blokes picked for our tent.
Yeah.
I said, well, I've been here for 4 months. And he says, oh, I'll have to see about this. I'll go and see Steve-O. I said, well, who's... Oh, yeah, then I knew who Steve-O was. He's a sergeant. Yeah, go and ask Steve-O. Anyway, he come back in the tent. He said, apparently you can stay here.
Well, that was nice of him, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's what he's like.
Yeah.
Anyway, he didn't go himself. He said, well, I forget the other 2 blokes that were in there, but anyway, he gave one of them the punt, and that's how we got to know each other, actually, yeah.
But I believe in, you got 2 families. You got one where you're born and you got siblings and that, and the second family is the people you serve with, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Jesus, over 55 years now, that we've all known each other, and we've had reunions, like we're down here at the moment in Adelaide, having a reunion,
Yeah, we just had Anzac Day, and you guys have come down and had a reunion.
But every one of us at the reunion, it's like all lost friends, you know what I mean? And there's no arguments, it's good, there's fun, joking and all that. It's really, I think that give a lot of people more hope too, if they have friends, and they could bring them up and rely on them, and like, what I noticed at the reunion, everyone's saying, yeah, well, look, if you're going through Melbourne, just call in and see us. And if you're going to Brisbane or Sydney, you meet up. And
I mean, you guys have got other friends that haven't been in the Defence Force. But when you have your friends in the Defence Force, do you believe that because what you've gone through, only another person who has been there understands that part of your life?
Yeah, to me, it's not so much the being in combat and all that sort of stuff, but it's the way we're treated when we come back. That's that's the difference between
having that person there that you could maybe fall back on.
Like I said, I went to UK, Europe for about 3 years, and I didn't. I got Vietnam right out of my mind.
Yeah.
I go a few days and I wouldn't even think about it.
Yeah.
And that's unusual, yeah. But anyway, that's the way you would. That's what affected a lot of Vietnam vets are necked themselves.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons. I'm not so much being in the bush all the time or being over there. That's my opinion, what the reason was, yeah.
And now, how are you guys treated now? I mean, you've got healthcare. Do they look after you health-wise, mentally?
Yeah, I reckon DVA do a pretty good job, like for the people. Well, the magic thing is it's called a gold card. If you got one of them, well, you get free medical, you get a pension.
No, I wouldn't say free medical. You earned that medical. You earned that.
Yeah.
It's not exactly what I call free. You work for it.
Yeah, I know, but at least put it this way, if we want to go and see a specialist, it might only take 2 or 3 days. If you're out in civilian life, it might take you 3 months, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But they on the whole, DVA look after you. There are a few people that are really struggling, especially the guys coming from Iraq and, them wars there, they seem to, I look at it too, with the people over the Middle East fighting, they didn't have any protection, Vietnam had the jungle, but they just had
you could hide behind a tree basically.
They're just out there in the open, and it must be very mentally, that must be.
Yeah.
Do you think that when you guys were in Vietnam, you knew who the enemy was? You could see them, or you knew what, compared to where the Middle East is, they don't know who the enemy actually is.
Over there, they look the same as we've not been racist. They just all look the same.
Plus, also, they're all wearing civilian clothes. They're not actually in uniform of some description.
They wear black and all that, the Viet Cong soldiers. Yeah. But then again, they employ a lot of other people to do work, so.
You would have had contacts from North Vietnam in the sense that they would have been telling you things like, what would you call them, defectors or something?
Oh, yeah, they did have, it wasn't our platoon, it was 7 platoon. They used to call them Kid Carson Scouts.
Yep.
They're that swap sides. So, well, they got caught by the Americans, Australians, or South Vietnamese, and they, propaganda. They train them.
Yeah.
And we got a couple of them. And
sorry, go on.
Go on.
No, I'm just saying these scouts that they did turn over, they don't say, right, tomorrow we're going out or
wouldn't tell them your detail.
Yeah. And they were usually the forward scouts, weren't they?
Yeah.
In other words, if you get attacked, they're going to go first, you know. Otherwise, they could be just leading you into a bloody ambush, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's and one of my mates died that I went from two. I went over on the same plane.
Yeah.
Flacky, he was in 7 platoon, and he said to him, he says, the next time we get in a contact, you two are gone.
Oh, that's good. That's nice.
Anyway, they went and told the Louis, his platoon commander.
Yeah.
The next thing they're gone.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Wow.
Because you'd rather your own scouts out there than these defectors, because you were like.
But then if you see one of your own get killed and they're still there, you know, you don't know what's in the mind of that guy, you know. Must be thought, well, you know, why should you be still alive and my mate's dead, you know?
Yeah.
And now, like, coming up very soon, we've got the I think it's the 50th year anniversary for the South Vietnamese. They're going to have a day here. What are your thoughts with the South Vietnamese and the North Vietnamese? I mean, you guys have been back to Vietnam. What are your thoughts about
the South? In the South Vietnam, there's still a lot of anger over there amongst the civilians.
Yeah.
Like, my brother lives in Vietnam at the moment. He's married to a Vietnamese woman.
Yes.
And she will not go to North Vietnam.
So there's still a lot of tension there.
I said, I said to my brother, you've been to the North, you know? No, he says, I'd love to see it, but she won't go. Because her father, he worked for the South Vietnamese government.
Yeah.
And when they took over the North, they put him through hell, you know what I mean? They put him in these compounds and all that, and they really treated him
badly,
like crap, you know what I mean? So although they're all one big country now, there's still that little bit of conflict, but I don't think there is in Australia because it's 50 years ago.
Yeah.
So
have you had interactions with any of the North Vietnamese?
Oh, yeah.
Is it just part of war? What I mean is you both went because the government told you to?
When Tilly and Young and myself went over there, we were not go back to see where we were, you know? And anyway, there was I don't know if you remember this, Tilly, there was that little guy there, and he says, I remember, he said, when you blokes were walking past, and we used to watch you as you walk past, you know what I mean? He was from the North, you know?
Yeah.
But they all, I mean to say, North and South, like if you go over there, they'll have a beer with you, you know, because it's the same with us. You're sent over there by the government.
Yeah, it's a government thing.
It's not the soldiers themselves.
Yeah. And to finally finish up, Tilly and Colin, what advice would you give to someone now that wants to go into the Australian Defence Force? I mean, it's different times now compared to you when you guys went in. What advice would you give them if they decided they wanted to have a career protecting our country?
Oh, I'd advise them not to.
Yeah.
Especially if there's a war going on like Afghanistan or something like that. That's finished now. But what I can understand about Afghanistan, that like Cobb was saying, the terrain. Well, we did have a bit of protection through the jungle, but they got no protection. You know, they're out. Well, who done the most of the operations over there were 2 Commando and the SAS. But there were infantry involved too. But then they were the 2 main forces in what we had. Yeah.
Yeah.
And well, they're all regulars now. You know, regular army. Yeah. But I'd advise them not to, not especially if there's a war going on. I wouldn't.
I used to tell people years ago that, you want to learn a trade or you want to do this, the army's great, until that they started accusing the SAS of killing people, killing civilians and all this, and the people that made them decisions, they weren't the general that was in charge that said they should lose their medals and all that. That's what he was. He was a general. He wasn't out there with the guys. You know what I mean?
Completely different.
How dare he have the gumption to say no one deserved, they didn't deserve their medals. They didn't deserve this and that. You know what I mean? And the thing I'm against now is join the army or any forces like that is who's going to join the army and go over and fight for their country and just think of the hesitation that some of them could have to say, is that a civilian? They haven't got time.
Yeah.
You go in there, boom, it happens, It's a split-second decision. And to say that they should be charged, it's bloody crazy. It really is. So, no, I don't believe they should now until they get their act together and maybe change the laws on these things. Bush done it when he they went to war. He said that they'll never be charged with killing someone accidentally or whatever, and that's what a soldier's got to be because he can't have that on his mind all the time.
No,
you can't. No, it's, I've heard some bad stories about that bloke, that VC winner, that SAS bloke.
He's got a bad record.
He's got a bad record. That's with the soldiers. That's where the normal soldier. He was a stand-over man apparently, but
still, I do believe that the government should always protect our soldiers, put them first, and have their backs. I mean, war is hell, and things happen in war that would not happen in normal situations.
Well, you're looking at the Second World War now. Okay, I'm going to say that was a bad war. But when they come back, the government give them land.
Yes,
they said there's a block of land. If you want to work it, But when the soldiers come back today, they've got to fight for what they got to get, you know what I mean? And they should be entitled to it.
Most definitely. And I think, whatever happens, these people, whether they chose to or not, they did put their life on the line. And we need to, honour them, their memories, when they come to back to Australia, they should be looked after, whether it be through medical, whether it be through jobs, whether it be through housing. We must put our defence service personnel first.
Well, they can bring migrants over here and straight away they'll put them in a house and all this. A soldier comes back, they don't say, okay, mate, I'll put you in a house and look after your kids and all that. It just doesn't happen, and that's what they should get their priorities right.
Exactly.
That's right, yeah. They, we weren't looked after when we come back with benefits and that. They had to fight for them. I used to work with Frank Angle, that's over the Vietnam vets at Granville, and and I'd done a few pensions. I used to do pensions and all that, what he does. And you learn different stories, and and we sort of changed things around, because it was unheard of any soldier getting a TPI unless he's got one leg missing or something like that. And
but even nowadays,
but
they
there
say
was even one bloke I remember in Western Australia. He had half his leg blown off and a part of his arm, and they said, "Well, you're lucky, you're right-handed, so we can give you a job as a clerk."
Heard that. Yeah, I've heard that one too.
Yeah. I'm going to say.
I know it's crazy, but at the end of the day, I really, not just because my father was in Vietnam or yourself, but mainly because I've been to a war zone and I will never understand what those soldiers went through, but I saw them when they come back, and we need to look after them. They were absolutely deflated, gutted, mentally and physically just drained. And I always remember one time there when I was when I was over in Iraq, a Humvee come in and there was a guy in the back. And they called me over, could come over here, and I was holding blood not coming out. And all he kept saying was, I want my mum. I want my mum. And I think that is
that
it.
young.
They were that young. Yeah, you guys were that young. Most of you were coming out of home, not even married. And, at the end of the day, we all just want our mum to look after us and protect us. And I really thank you guys. The story that you've told us about our soldiers who went to Vietnam has been really an eye-opener, and it really happened. These are real stories that we've seen today. And for someone like yourself who's been in infantry and in the army, we don't hear those stories. We hear more of the glorified situation of, go into, like if you see the adverts, it's so glamorous.
Yeah.
Fly a drone, drive a tank, but it's not like that at all.
No, not slogging through the jungle for soaking wet and
and also not knowing when you're going to get attacked next.
No, that's the main problem. Yeah.
And look, you guys and everyone in our Defence Force, past, present, and emerging, they're real true heroes. They put their life on the line through no fault of their own, and we must look after them. And we owe a lot, and I really thank you guys for your service. Enjoy many more reunions, and you got so many more stories that we hope to get out of you guys soon. So thank you very much, and look, enjoy the rest of your time in Adelaide for your reunion, and thank you for joining us on the program.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Yeah, that's been good, yeah.